The stars stretched endlessly above the cockpit of the Aurora's Reach, a small human exploration vessel sent to chart the farthest reaches of unclaimed space. Commander Elias Ward leaned against the control panel, staring out at the swirling nebula ahead. His crew was tired but steady, humans all, driven by curiosity and an unshakable will to survive in the vast emptiness of the galaxy. It had been 6 months since humanity had first left the comfort of Earth's orbit to explore beyond their own star system. Despite the ships, the technology, and the careful planning, the unknown had a way of humbling even the strongest humans. Yet humans thrived where others faltered. Elias knew this well. Humans had an instinct, a resilience that could turn a near-death encounter into a story of survival. A sudden alarm shattered the calm. The Aurora's Reach shuddered as the hull sensors picked up an anomaly on a nearby moon of a distant gas giant. "Commander, I'm reading movement on the surface," Lieutenant Mara Kesh called out. Her fingers danced over the touchscreen, highlighting a small figure struggling across the icy plains. "It's alive." Elias didn't hesitate. Humans were explorers and protectors by nature, and he knew what had to be done. "Prepare the landing craft. We're bringing them in." Minutes later, the landing pod pierced the moon's thin atmosphere. The winds howled across the icy plains, buffeting the small vessel as Elias guided it to a stable landing. Outside, the figure was barely visible, hunched, shivering, and fragile. It was clearly not native to this moon. Its movements were hesitant, almost fearful. Elias and Mara suited up, their protective gear sealing them from the cold that could freeze a human in minutes. As they approached, the figure collapsed into the snow. Elias' heart sank. Whoever this was, they would not survive long alone. "Hold still," Elias said gently, kneeling beside the figure. The person or creature was humanoid but clearly exhausted, trembling violently. Without hesitation, Elias lifted them into his arms. The shivering was intense, and for a moment the human instinct to comfort and protect took over. Elias wrapped his jacket around the figure, shielding them from the cold wind. "We've got you. You're safe now," he murmured. Back on the ship, medical sensors confirmed that the being was alive, though weak. Elias watched as the creature's breathing began to stabilize. Humans had always been capable of survival against impossible odds. But what amazed him was how quickly compassion could awaken, even in the farthest reaches of space. "Do we know what it is?" Mara asked, peering at the monitor. The readings were unusual, almost alien. "It's not human, not exactly. But there's intelligence here." Elias nodded. "We'll find out. But right now we save it." Over the next few hours, the crew worked together to keep the rescued being warm and fed. Humans thrived in teamwork, especially in crisis. And this small vessel was a testament to that fact. Elias watched as the creature slowly opened its eyes. They were a striking shade of violet, large and expressive, reflecting fear and gratitude in equal measure. "You're safe," Elias repeated. "No one will hurt you here." The being tried to speak, producing a series of soft musical sounds. Mara quickly activated the translator interface, attempting to interpret them. Words began to form, though broken and uneven. Cold, alone, danger. Elias felt a surge of determination. Humans had always risen to challenges, and this was no different. They would protect this being, help it recover, and learn from it. That was what humanity did: adapt, survive, and uplift. As night fell over the frozen moon, Elias stayed by the bedside, ensuring the creature was comfortable. Outside, the stars sparkled with the promise of distant worlds yet to be explored. Inside, the warmth of human determination kept one small, fragile life alive. Later, as the creature slept, Mara whispered, "Do you think it trusts us?" Elias smiled faintly. "It has to, and we'll earn that trust. Humanity has a way of reaching others even when the odds are against us." The days that followed were filled with discovery. The creature, whom they began calling Lyra after the constellation nearest their current position, adapted slowly to the ship's environment. Lyra's intelligence was apparent. She learned human gestures quickly, mimicked words, and observed the crew with keen curiosity. Elias realized something profound. Humans were not just explorers of space, they were pioneers of connection. Where others saw obstacles, humans saw potential. Where others saw fear, humans saw opportunity for trust. One evening, as the gas giant rose in the viewport, painting the ship's interior in hues of orange and purple, Lyra approached Elias. Tentatively, she extended a small, delicate hand. Elias took it gently. "You safe?" she said simply. "Yes," Elias replied. "We keep each other safe. That's what humans do." In that moment, he understood that humanity's true strength wasn't just in technology, in ships or in weapons. It was in their courage, their compassion, and their unyielding drive to survive and protect. The universe was vast and dangerous, but humans, curious, determined, and compassionate, would face it head-on. And together with Lyra, Elias knew they were not just surviving. They were shaping the future, one small act of care at a time. As the ship prepared to leave the moon and continue its journey, Elias felt a quiet pride. The stars were endless, the challenges immense. But humanity had once again proven that no matter how cold or distant the universe might be, they could shine as a light of hope, and maybe, just maybe, inspire others to do the same. The Aurora's reach had left the icy moon behind, but Elias Ward could not shake the image of the frostbitten plains. Lyra, fragile and mysterious, had already begun to show signs of curiosity that reminded him why humans were exceptional. They did not merely survive. They learned, adapted, and reached out. Lyra had spent her first night awake much of the time, her violet eyes tracing the contours of the ship, her fingers brushing the smooth surfaces of consoles and walls. She had a delicate grace in her movements, yet there was undeniable strength beneath her small frame. Elias watched her with cautious fascination. Humans often discovered allies in the most unexpected forms, and Lyra was proving to be one of those allies. The ship's journey took them deeper into uncharted space, a region mapped only in the preliminary scans from earlier robotic probes. Sensors occasionally picked up faint anomalies, ice shards floating in microgravity, strange electromagnetic pulses, but nothing the Aurora's reach could not handle. Yet Elias remained vigilant. Humans, after all, thrived in the unknown, and he refused to underestimate the dangers that could emerge. Lyra's adaptation continued at an astonishing rate. Within days, she had learned basic human words and phrases. She could understand instructions, and though her speech remained uneven, she began to communicate simple concepts: hunger, warmth, safety, exploration. She was not just intelligent, she was keenly aware. Elias spent hours with her, guiding her through the ship, explaining the technology and teaching her basic survival skills. She absorbed everything with an eagerness that impressed even the most experienced crew members. Lieutenant Marrakesh, ever analytical, observed Lyra's rapid learning with a mix of scientific curiosity and admiration. "Commander," Mara said one day, pointing to the navigation display, "Lyra seems to understand more than we expected. Look at this." She highlighted a path that Lyra had traced on the star chart. "She's pointing to that system. She wants to go there." Elias studied the chart. The system was a cluster of frozen planets orbiting a dying sun. No human probe had ever explored it, and the radiation levels were high. "Do you think she knows what's there?" Elias asked. Lyra nodded, her small hand resting lightly on the display. Though she could not yet articulate the details, her intent was clear. Humans relied on instinct and intuition as much as logic, and Elias recognized that Lyra's guidance could lead to something extraordinary. Preparation began immediately. The crew checked all systems, reinforced the hull, and ensured the medical bay was ready. Humans excelled at planning, anticipating challenges, and coordinating under pressure. They would need every skill they possessed. This journey was not without risk. As the ship approached the frozen system, anomalies became more frequent. Radiation spikes disrupted the sensors, and strange gravitational waves pulled at the hull. Lyra remained calm, almost as if she understood these dangers in a way the humans could not. Elias piloted the ship through a narrow passage between two ice-covered planets. The walls of frozen rock glinted like diamonds in the dim light of the dying sun. Lyra pressed her hand to the viewport, her violet eyes reflecting awe and recognition. "There," she whispered, pointing toward a hidden valley on one of the planets. The valley was shielded from view by towering ice cliffs and thick clouds of frost. Elias narrowed his eyes. It was a perfect natural shelter, almost impossible to see from space. Landing on the planet proved difficult. The ice beneath the landing skids was uneven, sharp, and treacherous, but Elias, skilled and determined, guided the Aurora's reach safely down. The crew cheered quietly. Humans celebrated survival. especially when overcoming obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Once outside, the cold hit them with a force that even the ship's suits could not entirely block. Wind howled, carrying snow and shards of ice like flying knives. Lyra moved confidently, leading Elias and Mara to the hidden valley. Inside, they discovered something remarkable. The valley was alive with vegetation that glowed faintly in the dim sunlight, a biome completely isolated, untouched by cosmic radiation. Crystalline plants emitted soft light, and streams of liquid shimmered with an almost metallic sheen. It was a sanctuary, and Lyra's presence suggested she knew it well. This is incredible, Mara whispered, scanning the area. How has something like this survived here? Elias nodded. Humans had a way of finding life where none seemed possible. They adapted, endured, and thrived. And now they were discovering evidence that others could do the same, even in the most inhospitable corners of the galaxy. Lyra moved carefully through the valley, stopping occasionally to touch a glowing plant or examine a shimmering stream. Elias followed, noting how she seemed to understand the environment, predicting where safe footing could be found. Humans had long relied on adaptability, but Lyra's instinct reminded them that intelligence came in many forms. That night, as the crew set up a temporary base, Lyra sat beside the small fire they had made, warming her hands. The light reflected off her violet eyes, revealing a thoughtful expression. Elias joined her, offering reassurance. "You've guided us well," he said. "We wouldn't have found this place without you." Lyra tilted her head, attempting words. "Safe here?" "Yes," Elias replied gently. "Here we are safe. Here we can learn. Here we can prepare for what comes next." Over the following days, the crew explored the valley, discovering life forms that seemed adapted to the planet's extreme conditions. Some creatures were crystalline, reflecting light like gems. Others were small, swift, and intelligent, observing the humans from hidden perches. Elias realized that this isolated biome might be home to a complex ecosystem, proof that life could endure anywhere with the right adaptations. Lyra's presence became even more crucial. She communicated with some of the smaller creatures through a series of gestures and sounds. The crew watched in awe as alien life responded to her guidance. Humans had always been capable of understanding, connection, and empathy, and now Lyra was teaching them that these traits could extend beyond their own species. One evening, while mapping the valley, Mara discovered a structure partially buried in ice. It was unlike anything human in design, geometric, precise, and ancient. Symbols etched into the surface suggested intelligence and culture. Elias approached cautiously. "Do you think Lyra knows this place?" he asked. Lyra's eyes widened. She moved forward, touching the structure reverently. Soft sounds escaped her lips, almost musical, almost like a greeting. The humans watched, understanding that trust and connection were being established across species. Across time, inside the structure, they discovered artifacts, tools, devices, and remnants of an advanced civilization. The humans in Lyra realized that this planet had once been home to beings far older and more advanced than they could imagine. Humans had always sought knowledge, and now they were standing on the threshold of uncovering ancient secrets. But the discovery came with caution. Sensors indicated a dormant energy field within the structure, one that could activate if disturbed. Humans had learned to respect the unknown, and Elias emphasized careful exploration. They would proceed methodically, testing every mechanism before touching anything. Over the next several days, the crew studied the artifacts, recording data and learning about the long-gone civilization. Lyra guided them, demonstrating a keen understanding of the device's functions. Her presence reminded Elias that intelligence and wisdom could be found in unexpected forms. One night, as the valley glowed with bioluminescent plants and the small alien creatures moved quietly, Elias sat beside Lyra. "You've shown us more than we could have imagined," he said softly. "Humans are explorers, yes, but together, we can do so much more." Lyra tilted her head, her small hand brushing against his. It was a gesture of trust, and Elias felt the weight of responsibility and the promise of future discovery. Humans had always faced challenges and dangers, yet their compassion, resilience, and courage allowed them to succeed. Now, with Lyra, they were part of something greater, an interwoven story of survival, intelligence, and mutual respect. The frozen moon held its secrets tightly, yet humans had a way of unlocking them. One careful step at a time, With courage, patience, and cooperation, they moved forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them next. And as the stars shone brightly above, Elias realized something profound. Humans were not just survivors. They were catalysts for hope, for understanding and for connection across species, planets, and time itself. The valley had become a sanctuary for the crew of the Aurora's Reach. Each day they uncovered more secrets, glowing plants, crystalline animals, and traces of the civilization that had once thrived here. Lyra moved among them with ease, guiding, observing, and sometimes correcting the humans when their curiosity threatened safety. Elias often marveled at her understanding. She seemed to sense patterns humans could not immediately see, how the plants reacted to energy fields, how the creatures communicated through light and sound, even subtle shifts in the hidden ruins that indicated movement. Lyra was not just intelligent, she was instinctively wise. Humans had always thrived by combining intellect with intuition, and now they were learning from a being who had evolved differently, yet complemented them perfectly. One morning, Mara called Elias over to a newly discovered section of the ruins. The walls here were etched with patterns that seemed to shift when observed from different angles. "It's almost like a map," Mara said, her eyes wide. "But it's alive somehow. The energy sensors are picking up fluctuations that correspond with movement in the ruins." Elias frowned. Humans had always been explorers, and with every new discovery, there was a need for caution. "We proceed carefully. No one touches anything until we understand it." Lyra approached, her violet eyes focused on the patterns. She reached out, placing her hand gently on the wall. The energy field pulsed, illuminating pathways and hidden chambers in response. Elias and Mara watched in awe. It was as if she had unlocked a memory that the ruins themselves had preserved. "This place. It's more than a relic," Elias said. "It's a message, a record, maybe even a guide." The crew spent days decoding the patterns, working in tandem with Lyra's guidance. Humans were exceptional in this way. They could collaborate, adapt, and solve problems under pressure. And Lyra's presence accelerated their progress, blending human ingenuity with her unique understanding. Then, one evening, the ground trembled. The crystalline plants vibrated, their light intensifying. The air seemed to hum with energy. Elias immediately ordered the crew back to the ship. Lyra, however, moved with purpose toward a central chamber of the ruins. "What are you doing?" Elias called after her. She turned, eyes intense. Simple words formed: "Awaken, help." Despite the risk, Elias followed. Humans were bold, often taking risks for the sake of discovery and survival. Entering the chamber, they found a central structure, a towering crystalline spire that seemed to store the history and knowledge of the lost civilization. The energy pulses grew stronger as Lyra approached, and she placed her hands on the spire's surface. Light erupted across the chamber. The spire hummed with life, projecting holographic images of the ancient inhabitants. Beings of light, crystalline forms, moving gracefully, working, building, communicating. The humans and Lyra watched in silence. These were not just remnants. They were echoes of a civilization that had transcended physical form, leaving their knowledge encoded in energy itself. This is incredible," Mara whispered. "We are seeing their history, their science. Everything." Elias nodded, a familiar sense of pride swelling in his chest. Humans had always been seekers of knowledge, and now they were privileged to witness an intelligence that had survived time itself. But knowledge often came with challenges. The energy field, now fully awakened, began reacting to the humans' presence. Shields flickered and the floor vibrated beneath their feet. Elias realized that survival depended not just on courage but on adaptability. Humans thrived because they could think, react, and work together under pressure. Lyra stepped forward, guiding the humans. She placed her hands on a series of crystalline nodes along the walls. Each node pulsed in response, stabilizing the energy field. Elias observed, realizing that their safety relied on understanding, patience, and trust in their companion. Hours passed, the energy finally stabilizing. The chamber glowed softly, revealing maps, star charts, and technological schematics far beyond human current capability. But even with this knowledge, Elias knew one thing clearly. Humans had a unique advantage. They could apply intelligence, creativity, and compassion in ways that no other species or even machine could. Over the next days, the crew, guided by Lyra, explored the technological marvels of the ancient civilization. They discovered energy storage systems, propulsion mechanisms, and even devices that could manipulate gravitational fields. Humans had always been resourceful, and they now had the opportunity to integrate this ancient wisdom with their own understanding. Then, a discovery changed everything. Deep within the spire, the crew found a chamber with a large crystalline core. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Sensors indicated that the core contained immense energy, enough to power entire planets, or destroy them if misused. Elias realized the responsibility they now bore. Humans had always been careful with power, understanding that technology without wisdom could be dangerous. "This is not just a discovery," Elias said solemnly. "It's a responsibility. We have to protect this knowledge and use it wisely." Lyra's violet eyes met his, and he saw understanding reflected there. She had survived alone in the cold, guided them here, and now she was ready to assist in safeguarding this legacy. Humans had always inspired others with courage, and now they were partners in preserving the wisdom of an entire civilization. As they worked, another tremor shook the valley. This time it was stronger. Crystalline creatures scattered, fleeing from unseen forces. The crew quickly realized that the spire's activation had awoken something else beneath the planet's surface. A vast, dormant network, perhaps even automated defense mechanisms left behind by the ancient inhabitants. Elias quickly organized the team. Humans excelled in leadership under pressure. He directed some to secure the artifacts, others to reinforce the ship, and a few to monitor the energy fluctuations. Lyra moved with remarkable precision, guiding them toward safety while simultaneously stabilizing the energy field. It became clear that the planet itself was alive in a sense, responding to intrusions, protecting its secrets. But humans were persistent, and together with Lyra they adapted, finding patterns in the energy flows and avoiding the more dangerous traps. Finally, after hours of careful maneuvering, the immediate threats subsided. The valley settled into a calm that felt almost alive, the glowing plants and creatures resuming their quiet movements. Elias breathed a sigh of relief. Humans had faced countless dangers in the stars, and their combination of intelligence, courage, and compassion had once again prevailed. As the team regrouped, Lyra approached Elias. She touched the crystalline spire lightly, and images of star systems appeared, showing planets rich with life and potential. Humans had always been explorers, and now they had guidance, a path that could expand their knowledge and influence across the galaxy. "This is just the beginning," Elias said quietly. "We've learned so much, but there's more out there, more life, more civilizations, more mysteries. And we will face them. Humans always do." Lyra seemed to understand, a small approving sound escaping her lips. Humans had inspired her trust, and she had guided them to a place few could imagine. Together, they were stronger than either could have been alone. That night, as the valley glowed under the light of distant stars, Elias reflected on the journey so far. Humans had ventured into the unknown and thrived because of their resilience, empathy, and unshakable determination. They had discovered a civilization that had endured in ways unimaginable, and through their partnership with Lyra, they had proven that connection across species and cultures was possible. The frozen moon held more secrets, certainly, and somewhere beyond, the galaxy awaited with new challenges, dangers, and wonders. But Elias had no doubt. Humans were capable of facing any obstacle. They adapted, they learned, they protected, and above all, they inspired hope wherever they went. As the crew settled for the night, Lyra sat beside Elias once more. She touched his hand lightly, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they had formed. Humans had always been capable of extraordinary deeds, not because of strength alone, but because of their courage, their curiosity, and their ability to care for others. And now, as the stars stretched infinitely overhead, Elias knew that the Aurora's Reach and its crew, alongside Lyra, would continue their journey into the unknown, carrying the spirit of humanity into the farthest reaches of the universe. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and dangers, but humans had always found a way, and with allies like Lyra, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The valley settled into a quiet rhythm, but Elias Ward knew better than to assume peace. The energy pulses from the crystalline spire had stabilized, but the planet itself seemed alive in a way that demanded respect. Every tremor, every flicker of light was a reminder that the lost civilization had left behind not just knowledge, but guardians, mechanisms, and mysteries designed to test the courage, intelligence, and wisdom of any who dared enter. Lyra moved through the camp, her violet eyes scanning the surroundings. She had grown confident, almost human in her careful gestures, but her instincts remained extraordinary. Elias watched her, realizing that humanity's strength was often multiplied when paired with allies like her. "Commander," Mara called from the edge of the valley. "The sensors are picking up fluctuations again. Different this time." "It's not random. Something is moving beneath the surface." Elias frowned. Humans had always confronted danger with a combination of strategy and courage. "Prepare teams," he said. "We may have to move fast." The team split into groups. Some remained near the spire to secure the artifacts and energy systems, while others, including Elias and Lyra, approached the source of the disturbance. The ground trembled slightly underfoot and faint lights flickered beneath the ice. It was as if the planet itself were breathing, awakening after a long slumber. Lyra paused, her hand hovering over the crystalline soil. "Danger, awake," she whispered. The humans trusted her instinct. Humans had always relied on observation and intuition, and now with Lyra's guidance they had an advantage few others could claim. Suddenly, a burst of energy shot from beneath the ground. Crystalline forms rose, mechanical and alive, moving with precision. The guardians of the planet, ancient sentinels designed to protect the knowledge and life within, emerged, assessing intruders with unyielding logic. Elias raised a hand. "We are explorers. We mean no harm." The sentinels paused, their glowing eyes scanning the humans. They moved with a purpose, not of malice, but of duty. It was humanity's first test, courage under threat. Lyra stepped forward, touching the crystalline spire. Her gestures and sounds were precise, almost musical. The sentinels hesitated, as if recognizing her connection to the planet's history. Elias realized that humans thrived not just by confronting danger, but by understanding it. Their compassion, their patience, their ability to reason, combined with Lyra's guidance, would allow them to succeed where others might fail. The standoff lasted minutes, though it felt like hours. Finally, the sentinels withdrew slightly, creating a pathway. Elias nodded to his crew. "Careful." Step by step, they followed the path into a deeper cavern beneath the valley. Bioluminescent plants illuminated the tunnels, reflecting off walls of crystalline growth. The guardians moved alongside them, silent yet watchful. Elias felt a surge of admiration. Humans had always been explorers, seekers of knowledge, but what made them extraordinary was their ability to inspire trust, even in beings built for protection, not emotion. At the heart of the cavern, the crew discovered a chamber larger than any they had seen. Crystalline architecture soared toward a ceiling lost in shadow, and energy lines crisscrossed the room like veins. In the center, a massive crystalline orb pulsed with light, containing the accumulated knowledge of the planet's lost civilization. Elias approached carefully. Humans had always approached the unknown with caution and curiosity, balancing their courage with wisdom. This is the legacy of an entire civilization," he murmured. "We have to protect it, learn from it, and honor it." Lyra touched the orb, her violet eyes reflecting its light. Images and sounds filled the chamber, historical records, star maps, and technological schematics. Humans had always sought knowledge, and now they were witnessing the pinnacle of a civilization that had survived long before humanity had left Earth. But the chamber's energy began to fluctuate. The orb responded to the presence of new life, testing their intentions. Elias quickly organized the crew. Humans excelled under pressure, capable of adaptation, collaboration, and decisive action. They moved carefully, analyzing patterns and stabilizing energy flows. Lyra's guidance proved invaluable, her instincts perfectly attuned to the ancient mechanisms. Hours passed. The team worked in harmony, combining human ingenuity with Lyra's intuition. Slowly, the energy stabilized. The orb's light became steady, calm, and inviting. Elias allowed himself a quiet smile. Humans had survived countless dangers across the stars, not through brute strength alone, but through intellect, cooperation, and empathy. The sentinels, observing the humans' persistence and respect, finally withdrew entirely. They did not vanish. They became guardians of the knowledge, ensuring that only those who proved worthy could access it fully. Humans had passed the test. Elias addressed his crew. "We've learned more than I ever imagined. This knowledge, these technologies, they are incredible. But remember, our greatest strength is still ourselves, our curiosity, courage, and compassion. Lyra made a soft sound, almost like a laugh. Humans had always found connection in unexpected ways, and she had become part of their team in a way that was profound and unspoken. Together, they were not just explorers, they were protectors, students, and allies. Over the next several weeks, the crew cataloged the artifacts, tested the technologies, and documented the life forms in the valley. Humans had a way of preserving knowledge, of passing it forward to benefit others, and Elias ensured that everything was recorded carefully. Lyra assisted in translating the energy signals, guiding the team through patterns that no human alone could decipher. One day, while analyzing a navigation map encoded within the orb, Mara discovered an anomaly, a nearby star system marked with a pulsating signal. It was unlike anything they had seen before. Elias considered their options. Humans had always been adventurers, willing to face unknown dangers for the sake of discovery. This system, it could be a clue to more civilizations, Elias said, or it could be a danger we've never faced. Either way, we need to investigate. Lyra touched his hand lightly, a gesture of affirmation. Humans had always drawn strength from collaboration, from trust, and now they had formed a bond that transcended species. Together, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The crew prepared the Aurora's Reach for departure. The frozen valley had given them life, knowledge, and perspective. They had survived tests that could have ended in disaster. Humans thrived under pressure, and with their compassion, intelligence, and adaptability, they had earned the Guardians' respect. As the ship lifted off, the valley below glowed with soft light. The sentinels watched, silent yet vigilant. Elias understood that humanity's role was not just to explore, but to safeguard, to connect, and to inspire. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but humans had a way of leaving their mark wherever they went, not through domination, but through courage, ingenuity, and empathy. Lyra stood beside Elias on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. She had survived cold, danger, and isolation, yet she had found trust in humans. Humans had always faced challenges and emerged stronger. Together, they symbolized hope, perseverance, and the power of connection across worlds. The ship's engines hummed, propelling them toward the pulsating signal in the nearby system. Elias felt the familiar thrill of adventure, tempered by responsibility. Humans had always embraced the unknown, and now they carried knowledge, allies, and the promise of discovery into the next chapter of their journey. For humans, the galaxy was not a place of fear but of possibility. They would encounter danger, yes, but they would face it with courage. They would meet life unfamiliar and strange, but they would seek understanding. And they would inspire hope, not just for themselves, but for anyone who had the fortune to witness humanity's enduring spirit. Lyra touched the orb's encoded star chart one last time before leaving the chamber. Images of distant worlds shimmered, hinting at civilizations yet unknown, challenges yet unmet, and opportunities yet to be seized. Elias knew that wherever humanity went, they would rise to the occasion. As the Aurora's Reach soared into the void, the frozen moon faded behind them. The stars stretched infinitely ahead, promising adventure, discovery, and the thrill of the unknown. Elias glanced at Lyra, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They were explorers, guardians, and friends, a team united by courage, curiosity, and the enduring human spirit. And in that moment, Elias understood the truth that had guided humanity since its first steps into space. No matter the challenge, no matter the danger, humans would persevere. They would survive. They would learn. They would thrive. The universe awaited, vast and mysterious, but humans were ready. With allies like Lyra, their story was only beginning. Together they would face the unknown, uncover its secrets, and leave a legacy of hope, courage, and understanding that would shine across the stars for generations to come.